alien princess fears marrying the merciless human until she finally meets him. From her vantage point, the city seemed calm and orderly, but her mind was far from calm. Today, the royal council would deliver news that could change her life forever. Lyra, the youngest princess of the Illyrian royal family, had grown up in luxury and protection, yet her world was about to expand into unknown territory. The Illyrians were a proud species, known for their elegance, intelligence, and diplomacy. Their society valued wisdom, foresight, and careful judgment above all. Lyra had been trained from a young age to be the perfect royal, to speak with clarity, act with grace, and think strategically. But even with all her training, nothing could prepare her for what the council had decided. "Princess Lyra," a calm voice called from behind her. She turned to see Adrianal, one of her advisors, approaching. His silver robes shimmered under the soft light of the tower. "The council is ready to see you." Lyra's heart tightened. She had suspected something like this might happen, but hearing the words spoken aloud still made her uneasy. She nodded silently and followed him down the long marble corridors, each step echoing like a drumbeat of destiny. The council chambers were vast, circular, and filled with representatives from every branch of the royal family. At the center, seated in seats of polished crystal, were the council elders. Lyra's father, King Arian, presided over the gathering with his usual calm authority. He was tall and imposing, his skin shimmering like the surface of a calm lake under sunlight. "Lyra," he said, his voice steady but gentle, "the council has spoken regarding your future. It is time you understand your next duty to the realm." Lyra swallowed hard. She had heard of royal duties before, but this one felt different. "Yes, father," she replied softly. An elder stepped forward, her wings folding gracefully behind her. "Princess Lyra, you are to be wed to a human prince," she announced. "Captain Adrian Kane of Earth's interstellar fleet has been selected as your future husband." For a moment, Lyra could not breathe. Humans. She had heard stories from diplomats who had traveled to Earth. Humans were strong, brave, and unpredictable, but also, according to the tales, cruel and merciless in war. She had studied them academically, read their history, and listened to every warning the council had given, but nothing could have prepared her for this reality. "Human prince," she whispered. Her voice trembled slightly. I am to marry him." "Yes," her father confirmed. "This union is meant to strengthen the bonds between our worlds. The humans and the Illyrians have much to gain from cooperation, and you, princess, will be the bridge between our two species." Lyra's mind raced. She had always known that as a princess, her personal desires would sometimes have to take a back seat to duty. But marriage to a human, especially one described as merciless, it was daunting. She had imagined meeting an alien prince from a distant world, someone graceful, strategic, perhaps even artistic. But a human, her stomach twisted at the thought. "Do I have to meet him?" she asked, her voice barely audible. The elder's eyes softened. "Yes, princess. You will meet Captain Kane aboard Peacekeeper Station. There, you may begin to understand him beyond the stories you have heard." Lyra nodded, though her heart felt heavy. She wanted to be brave. She had trained for diplomacy, negotiation, and command, yet the fear she felt now was unlike anything she had encountered. After the council meeting, Lyra returned to her private chambers. She sat by the wide window, gazing at the stars that twinkled above Zyphora. The view was breathtaking, yet it offered little comfort. She knew the stories of humans were filled with exaggerations. Even so, she could not shake the image of a human warrior, fearless and ruthless, making decisions in the heat of battle, leaving destruction in his wake. Lyra's closest friend and confidant, Serena, entered quietly. "You look troubled," Serena said, placing a delicate hand on Lyra's shoulder. Serena's wings shimmered with soft pink hues, reflecting her gentle and calm nature. "I am," Lyra admitted. "I am to marry a human, a warrior called Adrian Kane. They say he is merciless. I do not know what to expect." Serena smiled gently. Stories can exaggerate the truth, Lyra. Perhaps he is not as merciless as the diplomats say. You must meet him before deciding what to think. Lyra sighed. I hope you are right. I have heard too many stories of humans who act without thought, who follow only strength and power. I do not know if I can trust him. Trust is built, not given, Serena replied wisely. Remember your own strengths. You are intelligent, strategic, and compassionate. You can see beyond appearances. Do not let fear rule your judgment. Lyra nodded, feeling slightly reassured by her friend's words. She spent the evening preparing for the journey ahead. Her personal quarters were filled with soft fabrics, jewelry, and holographic displays, but none of these luxuries eased the tension in her heart. She practiced her greetings, her posture, and her voice. She reviewed her notes on human history and customs. The next morning, Lyra boarded the sleek, silver craft that would take her to Peacekeeper Station. The station was a neutral zone between planets, floating in orbit above a shimmering blue nebula. It was a place where species from across the galaxy met for diplomacy, trade, and negotiation. As the ship traveled through space, Lyra looked out at the stars. She felt a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. What would Adrian Kane be like? Would he be as terrifying as the stories suggested? Or would she discover something entirely unexpected? Upon arrival at the station, Lyra was greeted by a team of Illyrian and human attendants. The station was alive with movement. Diplomats, engineers, and travelers from countless worlds navigated the corridors. Holographic signs floated above, directing visitors to their destinations. Lyra felt a slight thrill of wonder despite her nerves. She was led to a chamber reserved for formal meetings. The room was spacious, with walls of transparent material that offered a view of distant stars and passing spacecraft. And there, standing with his back to her, was Captain Adrian Kane. He turned as Lyra entered, his tall frame and confident posture immediately noticeable. But there was no cruelty in his eyes. Instead, they were clear and observant, assessing the situation with calm intelligence. His expression was serious, yet welcoming. Princess Lyra, he said, bowing slightly. It is an honor to meet you. Lyra's breath caught. The voice she had imagined as cold and harsh was instead calm, even gentle. She nodded in reply, trying to maintain her composure. The honor is mine, Captain Kane, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. They exchanged formal greetings, discussing protocols, customs, and expectations. Lyra observed Adrian closely. He was direct, polite, and attentive. He listened carefully when she spoke, asked thoughtful questions, and showed no sign of arrogance or harshness. Lyra could not deny a growing curiosity. The human before her was not the merciless warrior she had feared. He seemed capable, strong, and kind in ways that she had not expected. After the initial introductions, they were guided to a quieter area of the chamber. The station's observation deck offered a breathtaking view of a swirling nebula. Lyra stepped forward, her nerves still present but mingled with wonder. Earth is very far from here, she said softly, more to herself than to Adrian. Yes, Adrian replied, standing beside her, but distance is not as important as understanding. That is why we are here, to understand each other. Lyra looked at him, studying his face. She saw honesty, intelligence, and calm strength. The fear she had carried seemed less certain now. Perhaps the stories were only part of the truth, exaggerated by distance and misunderstanding. I hope, she said slowly, that I can understand you as well. I hope so too, Princess, Adrian replied, his tone sincere. We both have much to learn. As the observation deck lights reflected in the stars outside, Lyra felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps this union, though unexpected and frightening, could lead to something greater than fear, something meaningful, powerful, and new. The first meeting ended with formal farewells, but Lyra's mind was alive with thoughts. Adrian Kane was not the merciless human she had feared. He was human, yes, but his humanity was a strength, curious, compassionate, brave, and wise. Lyra knew that the days ahead would bring challenges, negotiations, and trials. But for the first time since the council had summoned her, she felt something she had not anticipated: curiosity and cautious optimism. As she returned to her quarters aboard the station, she gazed at the stars again. Somewhere among them was the human who would soon become her partner. And for the first time, the thought did not fill her with fear, but with the possibility of discovery, understanding, and perhaps even admiration. Lyra lay down that night, staring at the faint glow of distant galaxies through her chamber window. She had been summoned to a duty that scared her, but she had also glimpsed a truth that the stories had hidden. Humans were not simply merciless warriors. They were complex, capable of kindness and courage in equal measure. And for the first time, Princess Lyra allowed herself to imagine a future where fear did not dominate her heart, but where courage, trust, and curiosity could grow. The next morning, Princess Lyra awoke aboard the Peacekeeper station with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. The soft hum of the station's systems filled her chamber, a constant reminder that she was far from the familiar comfort of Zyphora. Today, she would meet Captain Adrian Kane more fully, beyond the formal introductions, beyond the polite words. Today, she would truly see the human she was destined to marry. Lyra dressed carefully, choosing a gown of soft silver fabric that shimmered like the morning light. She wanted to appear composed, graceful, and respectful, yet her heart raced. She had spent the night thinking about Adrian, trying to imagine what he might be like. She reminded herself of Serena's words: "Trust is built, not given." When she stepped into the station's main corridor, the soft lights reflected off her attire. The corridors were alive with activity. Humans and aliens moved through them, speaking in languages that echoed and mixed in a symphony of interstellar diplomacy. Lyra could feel the energy of the station pulsing around her. Adrian was already waiting in the meeting chamber, standing beside a large viewport that looked out onto a field of stars. When he saw her approach, he gave a small, respectful nod. He was taller than she had imagined, with broad shoulders and a posture that radiated calm confidence. His dark eyes were observant, yet they held a warmth that eased some of Lyra's lingering fear. "Princess Lyra," he greeted, his voice steady but friendly. "I am glad to see you again." Lyra inclined her head politely. "Captain Kane, I am glad as well." She took a small step closer, her nerves mingling with curiosity. She had spent hours imagining this moment, yet reality was always different from thought. Adrian gestured toward the chairs near the viewport. "Shall we sit and talk?" Lyra nodded, and they settled across from each other. The stars outside seemed to stretch endlessly, reflecting the infinite possibilities before them. For a moment, silence hung in the air, not uncomfortable but filled with unspoken questions. "I must admit," Lyra began, choosing her words carefully, "I have heard many stories about humans, about you. I confess I am uncertain what to expect." Adrian leaned back slightly, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I am aware of the stories," he said honestly. "Some may be true, some exaggerated, but I hope you will judge me by what you see, not what you hear." Lyra studied him, noticing the ease with which he spoke. There was no arrogance, no threat, no hint of cruelty. Instead, she saw honesty and thoughtfulness. Her mind struggled to reconcile the merciless human of legend with the man sitting before her. "Tell me about yourself," Lyra said, curiosity breaking through her caution. "Not the captain or the soldier, the man." Adrian's gaze softened. "Very well, I grew up on Earth in a city by the ocean. I loved the stars as a child, always looking up, wondering if there were others like us out there. I trained to serve in the fleet, not because I wanted power, but because I wanted to protect. My actions in battle, they were guided by the desire to save lives, not to destroy." Lyra listened intently. His words were simple, yet they carried a weight she could feel. There was a depth to this human she had not anticipated. His reputation, she realized, was a story shaped by misunderstanding and distance, not by cruelty. "I see," she said softly. "So the human's reputation for harshness is not entirely accurate." Adrian shook his head. "No, humans are complex. Some are aggressive, yes, but most seek to protect, to understand, to grow. Strength does not always mean mercilessness. It can also mean courage, patience, and empathy." Lyra considered this. Her mind had been shaped by tales of human conquest and human ruthlessness, yet here was a man who embodied the opposite. She felt a flicker of respect and something more, a curiosity she could not yet name. They spoke for hours, discussing their cultures, their hopes, and their responsibilities. Lyra was fascinated by Adrian's openness and his willingness to listen. He asked about Zyphora, about Illyrian traditions, and about her life as a princess. He did not ask for showy displays of wealth or status. He sought understanding. In turn, Lyra shared stories of her home planet, the flowing rivers of light, the floating gardens in the sky, and the grand libraries filled with knowledge from across the galaxy. Adrian listened intently, occasionally asking questions that revealed his keen mind and genuine interest. At one point, Lyra felt bold enough to ask, "Why do humans seek to explore space? Why risk so much?" Adrian's gaze drifted to the stars beyond the viewport. "Because there is always more to learn," he said. "Because curiosity drives us, and curiosity leads to understanding. And because we know that protecting others sometimes means facing danger ourselves." Lyra nodded, impressed. His answer reflected values she had been taught since childhood: duty, courage, and wisdom. She began to realize that humans might not be the reckless or merciless beings she had feared. After a while, a subtle alarm sounded throughout the station, a minor systems alert, nothing dangerous, but enough to prompt action. Adrian stood immediately, moving with a grace and efficiency that surprised Lyra. He examined the station's holographic displays, issuing calm instructions to the staff. Lyra watched as he coordinated the response, his presence steady and reassuring. Even in a minor crisis, Adrian demonstrated leadership and care. He made quick decisions to protect the crew and the station, ensuring that everyone remained safe. Lyra found herself admiring not only his skill but his composure. Here was a human who was strong, yes, but not cruel, someone who acted with thought, care, and responsibility. When the situation was resolved, Lyra spoke softly. "You are not what I expected." Adrian chuckled lightly. "And what did you expect?" "A merciless warrior," she admitted. "A human who would see only strength and victory without care for others." Adrian shook his head. "I have known battle, yes. I have made difficult choices, but strength is not the same as cruelty. I believe every life matters and leadership is about protecting, not destroying." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. His words were sincere, and she could see the truth in them. She realized that her fear had been built on stories and assumptions, not on reality. They continued their conversation, moving from diplomacy to more personal topics. Lyra shared her dreams of traveling beyond Zyphora, of learning more about the galaxy, and of finding ways to help others. Adrian spoke of his hope for cooperation between species, of building alliances based on trust, and of the potential for humans and Illyrians to achieve more together than alone. Hours passed, and the initial formality of their meeting gave way to a growing sense of camaraderie. Lyra laughed at Adrian's dry humor, and he smiled at her observations about Illyrian customs. For the first time, she felt not fear but a sense of connection, a spark of trust beginning to form. As the day drew to a close, they were escorted to a quiet garden on the station, a place designed to mimic natural landscapes with floating plants, soft waterfalls, and gentle sunlight filtered through the station's dome. The garden was serene, a space where conversation could continue without the noise of the larger station. They walked among the flowers and water features, speaking quietly. Lyra noticed how Adrian interacted with the environment. He paused to observe a rare plant, touched the water gently, and showed genuine appreciation for the beauty around him. It was a side of him she had never expected, one that revealed a deep respect for life and nature. "You see," he said, "there is value in every moment. Every choice we make shapes the world, no matter how small. Leadership is not just about battles, it is about understanding, respecting, and caring." Lyra nodded, feeling a profound shift within her. She had feared this human, expecting harshness and cruelty, yet here he was, thoughtful, brave, and wise. She began to question the stories she had been told, realizing that humans were not simple creatures of war, but complex beings capable of great empathy and courage. As the artificial sun of the garden set, casting soft light across their faces, Lyra felt a mixture of relief and wonder. She was still unsure about the future, still uncertain about what lay ahead, but for the first time she felt hope. Perhaps this union could be more than duty. Perhaps it could be a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. Adrian turned to her, his expression earnest. "Princess Lyra, I know we have much to learn about each other. I do not expect everything to be easy, but I hope we can find understanding together." Lyra met his gaze, her own eyes reflecting the stars beyond. I, I hope so too, Captain Kane. I want to understand you and perhaps, in time, to trust you fully." They walked a little longer in silence, letting the quiet beauty of the garden settle over them. For the first time since the council's announcement, Lyra felt a sense of peace. The human she had feared was not merciless. He was capable, thoughtful, and even kind. And perhaps, she thought, that was the greatest strength of all. As night fell on Peacekeeper Station, Lyra retired to her chambers with her thoughts full of questions and possibilities. She knew the days ahead would bring trials and challenges, but she also knew that first impressions were not always the final truth. Captain Adrian Kane had shown her the humanity of humans, their courage, their wisdom, and their capacity for care. And in that moment, Princess Lyra allowed herself to imagine a future where fear did not dominate her heart, but curiosity, trust, and hope could flourish instead. For the first time, she looked forward to what lay ahead. The day after their first meeting, Princess Lyra and Captain Adrian Kane were summoned to the station's command center. The chamber was larger than any room Lyra had ever entered, filled with holographic displays, blinking lights, and panels that stretched from floor to ceiling. Around them, a small team of humans and Illyrians prepared for the scheduled compatibility trials, a series of exercises designed by the Council to test how well potential leaders could work together. Lyra's stomach tightened as she stepped into the room. She had spent hours preparing, imagining what the trials might involve. She expected formal debates, strategic games, and perhaps a test of diplomacy. But as she observed the setup, she realized these trials would be far more hands-on than she anticipated. "Princess Lyra, Captain Kane," a voice echoed through the chamber. It was Commander Valen, a senior officer responsible for the trial simulations. "Your cooperation and coordination will be tested in real-time scenarios. These exercises are meant to evaluate your leadership, decision-making, and teamwork. Remember, the goal is not to win individually but to succeed together." Adrian glanced at Lyra and gave a reassuring nod. "We'll figure it out," he said quietly. Lyra, feeling a mix of fear and determination, returned the nod. The first trial began immediately. A simulation projected a nearby space station under attack by a rogue fleet. Energy shields flickered, and alarms rang across the command center. Lyra and Adrian were required to coordinate a defensive strategy, managing personnel, resources, and communications simultaneously. Lyra's mind raced as she processed the displays. Every action had consequences. Every delay could cost the station its integrity. She issued precise commands to the Illyrian crew. delegating tasks with the calm and authority she had been trained to wield. Adrian, meanwhile, analyzed the situation from a human tactical perspective, quickly identifying weaknesses in the station's defenses and offering suggestions. At first, Lyra hesitated to fully trust his input. Humans, she reminded herself, were unpredictable. But as she listened, she realized his strategies were not reckless. They were precise, effective, and practical. Slowly, she integrated his ideas into her plan. "Divert additional power to the aft shields," Adrian commanded, pointing to the holographic display. "We can reinforce the station's weaker sectors while maintaining our defensive perimeter." Lyra nodded, her hands moving swiftly across her console. "Understood. Power diverted. Reinforcements to aft shields initiated." Minutes passed in tense silence as alarms rang, and the simulation continued. Lyra felt a thrill she had never experienced before, an adrenaline that came not from fear, but from the challenge itself. She began to notice the subtle ways Adrian led the human crew, calm, direct, and yet always aware of their safety. He did not demand obedience through fear. He earned it through competence and respect. When the simulation ended, the room fell silent. The station was saved in the exercise, and the holographic fleet dissolved into sparkling points of light. Commander Valen's voice filled the chamber again. "Excellent work, Princess Lyra, Captain Kane. Your coordination and quick decision-making prevented the simulated disaster. You have demonstrated effective leadership together." Lyra exhaled, her body relaxing for the first time in hours. Adrian turned to her and offered a small smile. "We make a good team," he said simply. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a mix of relief and surprise. "Yes," she agreed, "perhaps better than I expected." The next trial tested their ability to negotiate under pressure. They were placed in a simulated diplomatic scenario with representatives from multiple species, including some known for their cunning and unpredictability. Lyra's mind initially raced with worry. Humans, she reminded herself, were often forceful in negotiations. Could Adrian handle this without being aggressive? As the simulation began, Adrian's approach surprised her. He listened carefully, asked thoughtful questions, and remained calm even when the other delegates attempted to manipulate or intimidate him. Lyra, accustomed to subtle diplomatic maneuvers herself, found his methods refreshingly honest and straightforward. At one point, an alien delegate attempted to pressure Lyra by presenting false data. Adrian leaned in quietly, whispering a suggestion to her. Lyra executed the plan, presenting accurate information calmly and clearly. The delegate's ruse failed, and the negotiation continued smoothly. "You are clever," Adrian remarked quietly after the session ended, as they stepped out of the simulation room. Lyra smiled, feeling a sense of admiration. "So are you," she replied. I did not expect you to be so observant, so patient." Adrian shrugged modestly. "Humans are often underestimated, but patience and observation are just as important as strength." Their next challenge involved a physical test in the station's zero-gravity training arena. They had to navigate a complex obstacle course while retrieving critical data modules. Lyra floated carefully, using her wings for balance, while Adrian moved with surprising grace, adapting quickly to the lack of gravity. During the exercise, Lyra found herself relying on Adrian's instincts. He suggested routes she had not considered, pointing out safer paths and shortcuts. At the same time, she noticed how he respected her decisions, never overriding her judgment but offering guidance when necessary. "Here," Adrian said, motioning to a narrow passageway. "We can pass through here together. I'll guide the first module, then you take the next. We can coordinate our movements." Lyra followed his lead, and together they maneuvered through the course with efficiency. By the time they reached the end, both were exhilarated and covered in sweat from exertion, but triumphant. "You are surprisingly strong," Lyra admitted, catching her breath. Adrian laughed softly. "And you are precise and focused. We complement each other well." After the trials, the two were given a brief respite in the station's gardens. Lyra reflected on the day's events. She realized that each challenge had shown her a different side of Adrian, his intelligence, his courage, and his empathy. The merciless human of legend seemed further from reality with every passing hour. As they walked through the artificial forests and flowing streams, Lyra spoke candidly. "I must confess, Captain Kane, I feared you before meeting you. The stories, they painted a harsh picture." Adrian regarded her with thoughtful eyes. "I understand. I have heard similar stories about humans from other species. Fear often comes from misunderstanding." Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, and yet today I have seen your strength and your care for others. It is remarkable." Adrian smiled, though a hint of shyness crossed his features. "I only do what I believe is right. That is all any of us can do." The moment of honesty created a small bridge between them. For the first time, Lyra felt not just curiosity, but trust beginning to grow. She saw Adrian as a man who valued life, who acted with thought and conscience, and who could be a partner, not just a ruler or a warrior. Their respite was interrupted by a sudden alert. The station's sensors detected an approaching fleet of rogue drones, remnants of a long-forgotten conflict. Though non-hostile, they were malfunctioning and posed a risk to the station's delicate systems. Adrian sprang into action immediately, moving toward the command console. Lyra followed, her own training guiding her. Together, they coordinated the crew, issuing commands and analyzing data to neutralize the threat. Lyra watched as Adrian remained calm, issuing precise instructions, prioritizing the safety of the crew, and ensuring that every measure was taken before taking action. She realized once again that his strength lay not in aggression, but in control, empathy, and strategy. The rogue drones were successfully redirected into a safe orbit, and the station remained unharmed. Commander Valan, observing from the control room, gave a nod of approval. "Princess Lyra, Captain Kane," he said, his tone approving, "your combined efforts have proven effective under pressure. Your cooperation demonstrates the potential for strong leadership together." Lyra exhaled, her tension melting into a mixture of pride and relief. She looked at Adrian, seeing not the merciless human she had feared, but a man of courage, integrity, and insight. As the day ended, they returned to the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a reminder of the vast galaxy beyond Peacekeeper Station. Lyra felt a shift inside herself, a mixture of admiration, respect, and a slowly growing warmth. "Captain Kane," she said softly, I am beginning to see humans differently. Perhaps we can build something meaningful together despite the differences between our species." Adrian turned to her, his dark eyes reflecting the nebula outside. "I hope so, Princess Lyra. I believe that together we can achieve much more than alone. And perhaps in time we will understand each other fully." Lyra smiled, feeling a spark of hope. She had faced fear and uncertainty, and through the trials she had discovered not only Adrian's true nature but also her own ability to trust, to adapt, and to see beyond appearances. For the first time since the Council's announcement, she felt excitement for the future. The challenges ahead would not be easy, but with Adrian by her side, she sensed a partnership that could face any trial, overcome any tension, and create a future filled with possibility. As they left the observation deck, walking side by side through the quiet corridors of the station, Lyra knew one thing for certain. The merciless human of legend did not exist. In his place was someone far stronger, a human capable of courage, wisdom, and compassion. And perhaps, she thought, that was the kind of strength her people, and her heart, needed most. The following day on Peacekeeper Station dawned with calm light filtering through the observation dome. Princess Lyra awoke feeling a mix of anticipation and reflection. The previous days had shown her sides of Captain Adrian Kane that contradicted every story she had ever heard about humans. She could not help but think deeply about the man behind the reputation, the human who was brave, kind, and thoughtful. Lyra dressed in simple attire, choosing a gown of pale blue that mirrored the colors of Zyphora's oceans. She wanted to feel grounded, to approach the day with clarity. Today, the council had arranged a private session where she and Adrian would discuss the history of humans and Illyrians, and explore the deeper responsibilities their union might carry. When she arrived at the chamber, Adrian was already there, examining a holographic projection of Earth's interstellar fleet. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Princess Lyra," he greeted. "I hope you slept well." Lyra inclined her head. "Good morning, Captain Kane." "I slept, though my thoughts were restless. There is much to consider." Adrian gestured to the holographic display. "Then let us begin. Understanding our past may help us navigate our future." The session started with the history of humans in the galaxy. Lyra listened as Adrian explained Earth's expansion, the challenges they faced, and the conflicts that had shaped humanity's reputation. He spoke not with pride or arrogance, but with honesty and reflection. "Humans have fought wars," Adrian explained. "Yes. But these were often defensive, necessary to protect others. I understand that from the outside it can seem merciless, but every decision is weighed carefully. Every life is valued. That is what leadership demands." Lyra studied him, noticing the way he spoke with quiet conviction. His words carried a weight she could feel, not the weight of fear or cruelty, but the weight of responsibility. She realized that his reputation as merciless had been a misunderstanding, amplified by distance and misunderstanding between species. "Then the stories, the warnings I received, they were exaggerated?" she asked softly. Adrian shook his head. "They were based on truth, yes, but only part of it. Humans can be harsh when necessary, but our harshness is guided by principle, not desire. I have learned that mercy and strength are not opposites, they are partners." Lyra considered this. Her mind wandered back to the trials they had faced together, the simulation of the attacked station, the negotiation exercise, the zero-gravity course. Each time, Adrian had shown not only skill and bravery, but also empathy and intelligence. Slowly she began to understand the full measure of his character. "Then you are not what I feared," Lyra admitted, a hint of relief in her voice. Adrian smiled gently. "And I hope you will see that humans, though different, can share values and purpose with your people. That is why our union is meaningful, not just for alliance but for understanding, for building trust between our species." Lyra nodded, feeling a new respect and admiration for him. For the first time, she realized that her fear had been misplaced. Adrian's humanity was not a weakness, it was a strength. He combined courage with care, decisiveness with empathy, and strength with wisdom. The conversation shifted to Illyrian history and culture. Adrian listened intently as Lyra described her people's traditions, their values, and the responsibilities she carried as a princess. He asked questions, showing curiosity and a desire to understand, not to judge. "You are deeply connected to your people," he said thoughtfully. "And you have carried this weight with grace. I can see why your council chose you, but I also see why you are cautious. Our differences, they are real," Lyra sighed. "Yes, and yet seeing how you lead, I begin to wonder if differences must be barriers. Perhaps they can be bridges." Adrian's eyes reflected the soft light of the chamber. "They can be bridges, but only if both sides are willing to understand and respect each other. That is the challenge and the reward." They paused, letting the words settle between them. Outside, the stars of the galaxy continued to shimmer, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the opportunities that lay ahead. Later, the council arranged a personal meeting for Lyra with a historical archive containing records of Adrian's past missions. She approached the archive with cautious curiosity, unsure what she would discover. When she began reviewing the data, she was surprised. Adrian's record showed numerous missions across the galaxy, many involving conflicts with hostile forces. Yet in every instance, there was evidence of careful strategy, prioritizing the safety of civilians and crew. He had made difficult decisions, yes, but always with the goal of preserving life and ensuring justice. Lyra felt a surge of respect and understanding. This was the man she had feared, a human called Merciless, but in reality, he was one of the most principled leaders she had ever encountered. The stories she had heard were shadows of truth, missing the depth of his character. Adrian entered the room quietly, standing beside her as she examined the records. "I know these files may look intimidating," he said softly, "but I hope you see the principles behind my actions. Decisions are rarely simple but guided by conscience, fairness, and respect for life." Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting admiration. "I see that now. I understand your reputation differently. You are not merciless. You are careful, courageous, and wise. And I respect that." Adrian's expression softened. "Thank you, Princess. That means more than you know." Their time together that day was filled with discussion, reflection, and quiet moments of connection. Lyra began to see Adrian not only as a future partner but as a kindred spirit, someone who shared her dedication to duty, her respect for life, and her desire to do what was right. As the sun of the artificial garden began to set, Lyra and Adrian walked through the station's serene landscapes once more. The light bathed the plants and waterfalls in soft gold, creating an atmosphere of calm and contemplation. "You have shown me much," Lyra said, her voice gentle. "Not just about humans, but about myself. I realize now that fear can be misleading. Courage, understanding, these are what matter." Adrian looked at her, his dark eyes reflecting the soft glow of the garden. "You are wise beyond your years, Princess Lyra. You have faced fear and uncertainty and chosen to see the truth. That is a rare strength." Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth she had not felt before. For the first time since learning of her arranged union, she felt hope and curiosity instead of fear. Adrian's presence was calming yet inspiring, a reminder that strength and kindness could coexist. Their walk ended at a quiet overlook where the stars stretched endlessly into the void. Lyra stood silently, contemplating the vastness of the galaxy. Adrian stepped beside her, neither speaking for a few moments, letting the silence be a shared reflection. Finally, Lyra spoke. "Captain Kane, I had feared our differences would be a barrier, but I see now that they can be a bridge, and I hope we can build that bridge together." Adrian smiled, a genuine warmth in his expression. "I hope so too, Princess. Together, we can face challenges, learn from each other, and perhaps create something stronger than either of us alone." The stars reflected in their eyes as they stood side by side. Lyra's fears were no longer dominant. She had glimpsed Adrian's true nature, understood his principles, and felt the first stirrings of trust and admiration. She realized that this revelation, understanding the human behind the stories, was the foundation for everything that would follow. That night, Lyra returned to her quarters with a mind alive with thought. She reviewed every interaction, every lesson, and every moment of trust she had experienced. Adrian was not merciless, she reminded herself. He was thoughtful, brave, and compassionate. He was human, and that humanity was his greatest strength. As she drifted to sleep, she allowed herself a new feeling, hope for the future. The days ahead would bring more challenges, but she now felt ready to face them, not alone, but alongside someone she could admire, respect, and perhaps one day trust fully. Lyra knew that the revelation of Adrian's true character had changed everything. Fear had been replaced with understanding, suspicion with respect, and uncertainty with the possibility of a genuine partnership. She had glimpsed the truth of humanity, and it was more powerful and inspiring than any story she had ever heard. Outside her window, the stars of the galaxy shimmered like jewels, infinite and full of possibility. For the first time since learning of her arranged union, Lyra felt excited for what lay ahead. Peacekeeper Station buzzed with unusual activity. Princess Lyra and Captain Adrian Kane had spent weeks preparing for their final trials, strengthening both their skills and their understanding of each other. The bond they had built through shared challenges, conversations, and quiet moments had grown into a partnership rooted in trust, respect, and admiration. However, the galaxy was not without threats. Sensors aboard the station had detected a rogue faction of drones from a decommissioned war fleet. Though inactive for decades, these machines had recently reactivated due to a system malfunction, threatening both the station and nearby trade routes. The Council decided that Lyra and Adrian would lead the joint response, testing their ability to protect life and coordinate species under real danger. Adrian stood in the command center, examining the holographic display with calm precision. Lyra entered behind him, her movements graceful yet purposeful. The room was filled with Illyrian and human officers, all looking to their leaders for guidance. "Princess Lyra, Captain Kane," Commander Valen began, "the situation is serious. The rogue drones are heading towards civilian zones. Immediate action is required. Your coordination will determine the outcome." Adrian turned to Lyra, his dark eyes steady. "Are you ready?" Lyra nodded, drawing on all she had learned. "We are ready, together." The first wave of drones appeared on the display, glinting in the holographic representation of space. Lyra quickly assigned tasks to the Illyrian officers, directing defensive protocols and rerouting power to critical systems. Adrian simultaneously coordinated the human fleet, calculating intercept courses and ensuring that civilian traffic remained safe. As the situation escalated, Lyra felt a surge of adrenaline, but fear no longer dominated her thoughts. She trusted Adrian completely, and he trusted her. Their commands overlapped seamlessly, creating a strategy that was both precise and adaptive. "Divert auxiliary power to the outer shields," Adrian called. "Illyrian crew, focus on the energy nodes while my team handles the drone intercepts." Lyra nodded, her hands moving swiftly across her console. "Acknowledged. Energy nodes secured. Shields stabilizing." The drones approached in waves, each more numerous than the last. Lyra and Adrian worked in perfect coordination, anticipating each maneuver and countering it with swift decisions. Their combined leadership inspired confidence among the crew, who followed orders without hesitation. Amid the chaos, Lyra noticed a group of malfunctioning drones heading directly toward a transport carrying civilians. Without hesitation, she initiated a calculated maneuver, redirecting the drones while Adrian led a human squad to intercept them. Their actions were synchronized, like a perfectly choreographed dance of strategy and courage. By the time the last drone was neutralized, the station and all civilians were safe. The room erupted in applause, but Lyra and Adrian did not celebrate immediately. They exchanged a glance of shared relief, knowing that their teamwork had prevented disaster. Commander Valen approached, his expression one of approval and pride. "Princess Lyra, Captain Kane, your leadership and cooperation have proven exceptional. You have saved lives and demonstrated the strength of unity between humans and Illyrians." Lyra allowed herself a small smile, glancing at Adrian. He returned it with warmth, the kind that reflected both pride and mutual respect. After the crisis, the Council convened to formally recognize their achievements. Lyra and Adrian were commended for their courage, intelligence, and ability to work together across species boundaries. The trials that had once seemed daunting were now a testament to their growing partnership. The ceremony that followed was unlike any Lyra had ever attended. It blended Illyrian traditions with human customs, symbolizing not only the union of two individuals, but also the potential for harmony between worlds. Crystals glimmered in the light, holographic displays depicted both planets' histories, and music from both cultures filled the hall. Lyra stood at the center of the chamber, her gown shimmering softly under the lights. She felt a mixture of pride, nervousness, and excitement. When Adrian entered, she saw that same calm strength that had guided him through the trials. He walked beside her, his presence steadying and reassuring. The ceremony began with words from both councils, emphasizing cooperation, trust, and shared responsibility. Lyra listened carefully, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. From fear and uncertainty to understanding and admiration, she had witnessed firsthand the depth of Adrian's character. When it was their turn to speak, Adrian looked at Lyra, his expression serious yet tender. "Princess Lyra, from the moment I met you, I have been inspired by your courage, intelligence, and dedication. Together, we have faced trials, learned from each other, and protected lives. I promise to continue this partnership, to respect and honor you, and to work alongside you for the good of our peoples." Lyra's heart swelled with emotion. "Captain Kane, I admit I once feared this union. I feared what I did not understand. But through trials, conversations, and shared challenges, I have come to see your true character. You are not merciless, as I had been told, but wise, compassionate, and courageous. I promise to stand with you, to learn from you, and to build a future together for our worlds." They exchanged symbols of their union, a human medallion for Adrian and a crystalline pendant for Lyra, representing the blending of cultures and the partnership of their hearts. As the final words were spoken, a sense of unity swept through the chamber. Diplomats and leaders from both species recognized not only the marriage but the deeper message. Understanding, trust, and collaboration could overcome fear and misunderstanding. The union of Lyra and Adrian was a beacon of hope for the galaxy. After the ceremony, Lyra and Adrian walked through the observation deck, the stars stretching endlessly around them. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt completely at ease. She turned to Adrian, her eyes reflecting both wonder and gratitude. "You were right," she said softly. "Strength is not the absence of mercy but the presence of courage and care. I see now that humans, and you, can inspire greatness without fear or cruelty." Adrian smiled, his hand brushing hers gently. "And you, Princess Lyra, have shown me that leadership is not just about strategy or skill, but also about wisdom, empathy, and trust. Together, we are stronger." They stood in silence for a moment, looking out at the galaxy, feeling the weight of their journey and the promise of the future. Lyra thought of her people, her family, and the challenges that lay ahead. She realized that fear had been replaced by hope, suspicion by admiration, and uncertainty by the potential for something truly extraordinary. In the days that followed, Lyra and Adrian worked together to strengthen alliances, foster understanding, and implement strategies that reflected both human ingenuity and Illyrian wisdom. Their partnership became a model for cooperation, showing that even the greatest differences could be transformed into strengths when approached with respect, trust, and courage. Lyra often reflected on the path that had brought her here, from the council's announcement to her first fears, through trials, revelations, and finally understanding. She had learned to look beyond reputation, to see character clearly, and to value the qualities that truly mattered. Adrian, too, recognized the depth of the Illyrian culture and the responsibility carried by Lyra. He admired her strategic mind, her compassion, and her ability to inspire loyalty and respect. Together, they demonstrated that partnership, courage, and understanding could transcend species and galactic boundaries. One evening, as they walked together in the station's garden, Lyra looked at Adrian with a smile. "I once feared humans," she admitted, "but you have shown me what true strength looks like. I am grateful for your guidance, your courage, and your wisdom." Adrian took her hand gently. "And I am grateful for you, Princess. You have shown me the importance of patience, reflection, and understanding. Together, we have learned from each other and grown stronger." They stood together, hand in hand, looking out at the infinite stars. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges, opportunities, and unknowns. But Lyra knew that with Adrian by her side, they could face anything. Fear no longer dictated her thoughts. Hope, trust, and courage guided her heart. The story of the princess who feared the merciless human had transformed into the story of two leaders who understood, respected, and inspired each other. Their union was not just a marriage, but a symbol of unity, a testament to the strength of humans, the grace of Illyrians, and the power of collaboration. As Peacekeeper Station settled into calm once more, Lyra and Adrian looked at each other, smiles of quiet joy and certainty on their faces. They had faced fear, trials, and uncertainty, and emerged stronger, united, and ready to lead together. Lyra whispered softly, "This is only the beginning." Adrian nodded, his eyes reflecting the distant galaxies. "Yes, Princess, the beginning of a future we will build together for our people and for all who look to us for guidance." And as the stars shimmered beyond the station, Lyra knew that the merciless human of legend was gone, replaced by a man whose courage, wisdom, and compassion had won not only her trust but her admiration and her heart. Together they faced the galaxy, ready to protect, to lead, and to inspire, a true union of worlds, hearts, and hope.